Went from a mews house in Hyde Park to a tower block on a council estate on Edgware Road, literally within weeks. In the 90s, got involved with the Russians. We're talking the first wave of the Russian oligarchs. I knew what that was about, and I wasn't prepared to risk my life.
Delivering over 150 homes across England, from brownfield to greenfield, PDR schemes to full applications.
Yeah, but this was 2012. An old schoolmate that I hadn't seen for 25 years said, have you heard about this thing called PD, prior approval, permitted development? So let's be clear, people, right? And I still use this today. Get the deal and then worry about how you're funding it afterwards. And I know people don't really talk about this. In the real world, you don't have the money available for every deal all of the time. It's a fact. It's all about the margin. You make your money when you buy and not when you sell.
What characteristic traits do people need to have to be successful in property?
So it's like understanding that stuff, that it's not what it's all about. It's not about that. It's never been about that.
Just interrupting this episode to let you know that in the show notes you will find a link to a free deal appraisal calculator. It's a buy, rent, refurbish, refinance calculator that I built. I used it over 550 times to find the first few high-yielding income-producing assets that I bought, and it gives you every single cost that you need in there to make it super granular. It also calculates your finance costs, and you can manipulate and tweak the LTGDVs up and down, the arrangement fees, the interest rates. You hit update model and it will tell you how much cash you are going to make on a monthly basis, as well as your return on capital employed. It also has a section for your incurred monthly expenses if you're doing serviced accommodation or HMO where all bills are inclusive. It's really comprehensive. I use it myself and I want you to use it. Now back to the episode. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Property People. Today I am delighted to be joined by Mr. Jerome Roith. How are you today?
Okay, Sam, how are you?
Having the best day of my life.
Good.
Now we're going to get into some interesting topics, some of my favorite stuff around land planning development. Before I go into all of that and you share all of your knowledge and insights with the audience, I just want to do a little bit of an intro. You're a developer, you're a strategist and mentor to the next generation of UK property talent. As the founder of Property Planning Gain and director of Sensitive Developments, you've spent over 25 years unlocking value through planning gain. Is that right? 25 years? You don't look old enough.
Thank you, Sam. Flattery will get you everywhere.
You've delivering over 150 homes across England, from brownfield to greenfield, PDR schemes to full applications. You've known how to navigate complex deals for quite some time now. And you've also got the prop dev training, which is some hands-on mentoring where you're helping developers build smarter and lead better to making greater properties for us to solve the affordable housing crisis. Is that fair to say?
That's a pretty decent summary, yeah.
Good man. Well, before we dive into all that, because I'm sure there's lots of questions that people watching this are going to want to have asked you, I've got a list of my own. Hopefully we'll cover some good ground and make everybody happy. But before we dive into all of that, I'd just like to know a little bit about you, and in particular, what type of person were you at school? Did you always, you'd be a land planning development guy?
So school wasn't really for me. And I kind of know this is like a familiar theme within people. I guess you've had people that I know in business. So most of my school reports that my parents used to read to me were that he's taken the year off and he's had another sabbatical. That's what they used to say.
No way.
Every year. They used to use that word. He's had another sabbatical.
They used to say, it's almost like in being sarcastic, aren't they?
Yeah, it was basically that I was just sitting there and I wasn't really engaging. My parents sacrificed everything to send me to a really good private school outside London. And so I was there for the jolly and the sport and the theatre and that stuff you get within the private system, not really there for education. Left with a handful of GCSEs. never fulfilled my potential academically. Never went to uni. Ended up going to South Bank Uni in my 30s when I was already running my estate agency in London to do an HNC in residential surveying when they were going to introduce the home information packs. That was another government thing to speed up conveyancing. That's like 20 years ago, where they were going to bring in these things called HIPs. So education for me, not really a thing.
Well, academically, not so much, but certainly the academic successes or failures on a scoring card doesn't necessarily make us the man. It doesn't necessarily dictate on what you can and can't achieve in life. So going back to kind of 16, what did you do like straight after they decided that you didn't have to go to school anymore?
So back then, you actually could leave education at 16. Unlike now.
Can you not do that now?
They basically force you into college, so further education, or the apprenticeship scheme.
Is that right?
So at 16, if you're leaving school at 16 now, and not doing anything, you're falling under the radar, right?
Okay.
So left school at 16, parents got divorced, went from a Muse house in Hyde Park to a tower block on a council estate on Edgware Road, literally within weeks.
Wow, that's a bit different. So, and this private school you went to in North London, was it a boarding school?
No, that was in Bristol, a boarding school.
It was a Bristol.
I was there from 8.
Right, got you.
Until 17. And then my father ran out of money. That was going back to the recession of 1990.
Right.
When interest rates were 15%.
Yeah.
And Thatcher's golden years had come to an end, and the whole boom cycle had just gone. So we lost the house. My parents split up, stayed in London. My mum got offered a 2-bedroom flat on a council estate. So it's a bit of a culture shock coming from mixing with lord and ladies' kids and eating at National Trust houses with butlers and chefs, which is what it was being in that system. We chauffeur driven cars and stuff, not us, but them.
Yeah.
So basically living on the 8th floor of a tower block. So,
just up the road.
Yeah. So very challenging time that took many years to figure out. Got a job selling ice cream and serving cappuccinos at White Liz Shopping Centre in Queensway, which is now a £2,500 a square foot scheme.
Yeah.
Earning £3.50 an hour. Did not have a clue where I was going. I knew I wanted to be a journalist. That was my passion. Was reading, writing, broadcasting, telling people stuff. But that didn't happen because of circumstances, right? As is life, right? Went to college, catering college, did a 2-year BTEC National Diploma in Hotel Management and Catering, got a job at a 5-star hotel when I was serving the royal family, hotel opposite Buckingham Palace. Great experience. Served the Queen Mother, Mrs. Thatcher.
You're kidding me.
Cabinet ministers, absolutely like unreal.
Unbelievable.
And I was, 19, 20 years old.
Did you have to wear white gloves and that?
It wasn't white gloves, but I wore a really smart white coat with like regimental buttons on.
How did you get that job?
So I was the college I was at doing the catering diploma was the same college that Jamie Oliver was at, Westminster College.
Right.
And the same college as the guys that started Ask and Prezzo, and they're now shareholders in Everyman, the K's.
So you got Jamie Oliver, the guys who've got a thing, and you're serving the Queen.
And I'm serving the Queen Mother.
Okay, fair play.
She wasn't with it. I served her. She was in her 90s then. She couldn't really communicate, wearing canary yellow. Great experience, but realised that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Because I was waiting to fill dead man's shoes to basically progress in that industry at that time. It's not like that now. You can actually get a career in hospitality and actually go places.
Yeah, and there's some people do really well out of it.
Came out of that, answered an advert in a newspaper for a job, because that's what people used to do. People used to advertise jobs in Loot or the Evening Standard. I don't know how old you are, but that's how I've been brought up, right? From that era.
I mean, you're talking about Hips, you're talking about Loot and all that, absolutely.
And a small estate agency in Regent's Park called Wise Properties, whose nickname was Wide Properties. And I walked into this office and all it was just full of hustlers, right? 5 guys, nicely dressed, all at it. So this is 94. 94, office junior, 150 quid a week, cash in hand, just basically running the keys around and answering the phones, because you weren't allowed to even show a property. And so I got a taste for something. I didn't know what that taste was, but I got a taste for it. Started doing deals, agency deals. You know, back then, you could buy a 2-bed flat in Paddington Street, Marylebone, above a shop for 110 grand. And it was taking a year to sell.
How much is that shop now, do you reckon?
I reckon the flat above that shop's probably £750,000 above a restaurant. That stuff was taking a year to sell. Now, that was when banks stepped in really quickly and took it and repossessed it. It's not really like that now. It's like much more light touch.
They drag it out a little bit.
So if back then, if you fell behind, you were toast.
Yeah.
So we had a constant supply of repossessions, and that's where I started to meet dealers, property dealers, not drug dealers. It was dealers. That's what they're called, right?
Yeah. Traders is probably the more.
Now it's all about flips and all that. Like the lingo's changed, but it's the same thing, right? And that's where I started to understand how the game worked, about the margin, and how the reason they called you every week and offered you incentives, brown envelopes, whatever you want to call it, was because they wanted the deal. And that stuff has stuck with me.
Very interesting. So 16, went out, catering, bunch of other stuff, fell into this estate agency. Was it Edgware?
Regent's Park.
Yeah. Okay, not too far around the corner. And then, I mean, I have a background of estate agency, so I very much can relate to a lot of what you've just been saying. And some of these offices, very, very interesting, kind of wheeler-dealer types. And it was just, I guess it was like almost a little bit of the wild, wild west of estate agencies. It's a lot more refined now. Especially with Rightmove and Zoopla and everything, which never used to exist back in the day. So having done all of that, what was the next step? Where did you think, okay, right, you started, because you said you were just a runner for a while, answering the phone. You weren't doing the actual viewings. At what point did that change?
I think it took about 6 months to do viewings. Worked on Saturdays. Nowhere opened on Sundays back then. Saturdays you shut at 2. Foxton's changed the game in terms of the hours, and like everyone basically had to match it.
7 till 7 they are now.
And it's Saturdays and Sundays, right? So started doing some viewings, started tucking away a few what you'd now call prime resi sales. St John's Wood, Regent's Park, Marylebone, that's what you'd now call it. It wasn't a thing. These were just houses you were selling for 500k back then. And then made a decision with no planning, as in no business planning, no mentoring, no one behind me saying this is how you do it, lad. I signed a lease on a shop front behind Baker Street in my own name, in my own company name. Let's be clear to the audience, back then it was easier to do business. Fact. You ask anyone who's over 40, it was easier. It was easier to get an overdraft from the bank. Your bank manager came in, he sat in your office and said, how much do you want? and it was very personalised. And you could set a limited company up, and the costs of running the limited company weren't $2,500 a year after you've paid your accountant to file. It's all, you know, like the regulatory stuff didn't exist. It was pro-business.
Yeah.
I was 24. Tony Blair had just got in. It was called Britannia, and living the dream, but didn't have a clue what I was doing. Signed this 5-year lease with a 3-year break clause. I'll come to that. 3-year break clause, landlord side only. Not a clue. And started an estate agency. Got a business partner, a mate that was doing prime W1 sales. We were playing cricket together. He was a lot older than me. And it was like, why don't we start an estate agency, right? Built it up. Had some negotiators. Managed properties when it was... So, let's be clear. And if there are estate agency owners listening, this is just my opinion. Might not be the opinion of the whole marketplace. Back then, you could make money having a shop front. I don't understand how they do it. With their rent of 50k, their business rates of 20, their shop fit out of 150, and then their 4 staff on a minimum of 25 each.
I literally did. I run that business plan. About even 7-8 years ago. I was thinking, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to finally become an estate agent. I've always wanted to do it. Did the business plan, and I was like, Jesus Christ, am I going to need like £250,000 to do this, and like to get really up and running? And then how long it takes you to get the sales in, and how to get the return on investment. I was like, oh my God. I mean, there are people that do a bit more bootstrap these days, and there are different ways of the EXP model and stuff. You can do it, but it's not quite the same as what we're talking about. To do it that way, the startup costs are exactly how you described.
So, you know, didn't have any formal business training.
This episode is sponsored by Merry Oaks Property Finance Brokerage. Merry Oaks is a finance brokerage for investors, developers, landlords, SMEs across the country, helping you with all of your finance needs. So whether it's bridging, development, commercial, buy-to-lets, HMOs, service accommodation, industrial, hotels, the whole 9 yards, whether it's for your portfolio, whether it's for your business, we can support you. Please contact us. We've got the link in the show notes, and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, back to the episode.
Let's be clear, had no business diploma or anything like that. Didn't have a family that I was around that were in business, that were going to assist me by pointing me in the right direction. Made the whole thing up as I went along. It's a bit like we're all doing still, but people don't want to admit it, right? Everyone's still winging it, yeah? It's just that as you get older, you become a little bit better at winging it.
Exactly. And the playground's a little bit bigger. In terms of the school playground, sometimes we're all just confined as kids. Now the school playground is everywhere.
Yeah, correct. And that did okay. Lived a very fast lifestyle. Partying very hard and not really understanding what I was supposed to do when you earn money, which is to invest it, right? Apparently.
My parents always told me save, but they didn't add invest as well. Because I was like, save for what, man? I'm young, I'll make it back. But invest was the wiser way.
So that whole period, whilst the business was growing and doing well, there was nothing getting built. There was no foundation happening. During this process, I ended up, now this is like a real curveball, right? So I ended up buying a bar and nightclub in Cape Town.
Bit left field.
Been there on holiday a lot, going way back to 95, and good South African mate at school. And decided to buy this venue in Cape Town in Long Street, it's a long street, and that's where you party. Okay.
So there was the party strip.
It was like the party strip. How would you compare it? I mean, I've never done Iron Napa or Magaluf. I probably did 35 years ago, but that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Except a little bit more refined.
Yeah,
because Cape Town's really cool.
So it was like a wine cocktail bar.
bar and then nightclub where I was bringing over London DJs, bringing the vinyl in, bringing the MCs in.
Oh, is it?
Stayed there for a couple of years, was basically commuting backwards and forwards because there's only a 1 hour time difference. So you could jump on a flight in Cape Town at night direct and you land for breakfast at Heathrow with a 1 hour difference and you could be at your office, right? Oh, great. So I thought I was living the dream. But actually what was happening was it was flying, you know, not really understanding business. And so I took my eye off the ball because when you're not running your business and you're not there all the time, people will steal from you. That's the reality. That's the club business. That's any business where it's transactional, you're handling money. So the estate agency got someone in to run it, and then I started getting calls. Mobiles were in by then. Yeah, smartphones were made, BlackBerries, right?
Yeah.
No, probably pre-BlackBerries.
Early 2000, you got like you're still on your Nokias.
Yeah. Your burners, right?
Yeah.
Which they now call it, which is pretty nuts. I kind of needed to get out of Cape Town and sell my shares in the business before I probably came back in a box. It's like hardcore out there. Protection rackets.
Yeah. That's the nightclub game, yeah.
Huge poverty. Kids of 6 sniffing glue.
Shit.
You'll get killed for 10 rand. And it basically helped me a lot. Start to understand the value of being grateful for what we have. Like, we don't realise how lucky we are being born into this, whatever this is. We're in a civilised democratic, it's civilised still, it's still democratic. We're here, right?
Yeah.
Came back, the estate agency was on its knees and built it back up again, moved offices. The 3-year break clause got me on the lease. So I didn't know what I was signing. The landlord served me notice. I said, I got a 5-year lease. He said, yeah, it's a 5-year lease with a 3-year landlord only break.
And why did he break it though if you were paying the rent? The rent has gone up and he wanted more money?
To turn it into resi.
Oh.
Ground floor into resi. Because the values had come back. It was growing really quickly in Marylebone and that whole Baker Street area.
Yeah.
It was going to, he turned it into a 2-bed masonette.
Fair play. Everyone's at it these days.
Yeah. And I then moved office, got involved with the Russians in the 90s.
It sounds like a movie out of like Lock, Stock or something.
So we're talking basically the first wave
Yeah.
of the Russian oligarchs. We're talking pre-Abramovich. We're talking Boris Berezovsky, who's no longer alive. If you know what happened under Yeltsin and all that, then you'd have heard that name.
I have heard of that name, yes. And I
lived
know
in
a little bit about
Weybridge.
that, so, yeah.
Lived in Weybridge, mysteriously died in mysterious circumstances, whatever, right? So when I was running the agency, I was doing a lot of lettings. It was 400 quid a week for a 2-bed flat in Baker Street. One of my big sources of income was the letting and management business. So a lot of the Russian kids and the wealthy trust fund kids with very wealthy overseas parents who weren't clever enough to get into London Business School went to Regent's Business School inside the park.
Yeah.
Where they'd have their Porsches and rented Ferraris and stuff. Well, this is going back decades now, right? This is the beginning of it all, of that stuff. And I got friendly with a lad whose dad was Russian. And I'm not going to mention his name. And we basically became business partners. He was 18.
How old were you at the time?
Probably 28, 29.
All right, so a little bit older. You should have a few years behind you.
So I needed investment. This whole experience really taught me about pausing for breath. It's what I tell everyone younger, that I deal with in business, or I mentor, or I consult, or train, whatever, or people that I'm doing deals with, pause. Take a breath, we call it. You don't need to make that decision now. You don't.
Yeah.
And if it's too late and the deal's gone, or there's another investor, so what? There will be something else.
There'll be something else around the corner.
And this whole world we live in now, with the speed of everything, I'm talking TikTok, Gen Z, whatever. I mean, we've got 4 kids, my missus and I. They are all Gen Z. So I need to be careful what I say. But it's very, very instant. In business, it doesn't work like that. Definitely not in property.
Yeah.
We became partners. We had 50% of a limited company. My 18-year-old Russian business partner, whose dad was connected at Kremlin level, because they all left Russia and took what they could. This is how it all started.
Yeah.
And Gordon Brown, to fill people in, embraced it and made London and England attractive for them by loosening. This is the whole non-dom stuff, and you don't pay tax on your UK income and all this stuff. People don't really understand what's going on now. It was a choice: either let them go to Paris or New York, or make London the haven for ultra high net worth overseas money. The overseas money's been in London for decades. It was the Nigerians that came first, then the Arabs, and then the Russians and the Chinese. This has gone on since the 70s here. It was like the Nigerian and Arab oil money.
That's absolutely.
Edgware Road, all that.
Yeah.
And it just grew. That was the first wave. We went into business together, and he promised me the world. And I believed it, because my eyes lit up, because all I could think of was, it's basically Russian oligarch money somewhere behind this. Back then, there was only one lawyer in London that was handling the Russians, to my knowledge. And there was maybe 1 or 2 high street banks that were having a dabble in it. For all the reasons we know. You want me to go into all that?
No. I can use our imagination.
Yeah. And one day I got a call, and I had a meeting with my partner. I think his dad came. His dad used to stay at the Lanesborough on Hyde Park Corner. And he said, okay, so it's going really well. Like, the agency was going okay, not pulling up trees. The game had changed. There was like a lot more competition. In 1997, there was like 3 agencies on Baker Street. It's like on my own. Do you know what I mean? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And he said, so we'd like you to become a director of these limited companies. And this is a lawyer we want you to use. So I knew what that was about. And I wasn't prepared to risk my life. That's kind of what that stuff is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's heavy. And I think the Cape Town experience had taught me how to say no to people.
Yeah, you could sense it coming.
Because when you've got people coming every week with their hand out for cash to protect you in the club business, which still goes on today, in exchange for protection, so you don't get mugged for your night's takings coming out your club. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I kind of understood it taught me how to operate at that level. And it's helped me deal with investors. It's always straight investors here, right? It's taught me, here I am 25 years later, it's okay to say no.
Yeah. So basically they said, and you said no.
Yeah, I said no, and then it was done.
And that was it? That was the end
of
of that relationship?
And that was literally the last I ever saw of him. Okay?
Oh, really?
I then got a call a year later. He said, hi, Jerome. He had 50% in the business, so no one had voting control. It's another lesson with your limited companies and who you're bringing on board and people with significant control, and give them under 25% so they got no voting rights. It's all very technical stuff that you kind of need to learn pretty quickly if you're serious about the game we're in, property development and land. And he rang me up. He said, I've still got 50% of the company. I couldn't do anything with this company. apart from fold it. But I needed his consent. So I thought I need to meet him in a public place where there were lots of people around, because he'd put money in, or his dad had. So I met him in McDonald's, Oxford Street.
Can't get much busier than that.
And he said, I'd like my money back. I said, I haven't got it. I said, the business failed. You sold me down the river. You promised the earth and delivered nothing. And he had lifestyle issues as well. How he was conducting himself.
I can imagine.
And I never heard from him again.
You just said, I don't have it.
I haven't got it.
Bank account's not got it.
I kept it going. I found someone to take the agency over, literally buying the applicants and the management business, really.
Yeah.
With a couple of years left on a lease in Bell Street off Lisson Grove. Don't know whether you know that neck of the woods.
No, not that.
Yeah. So, and I went to work in the city for Copping Joyce Chartered Surveyors running the agency.
Right.
The commercial agency.
So you went and got a job after all that?
Yeah. I got a job. I pocketed a few quid. I'd invested nothing. I was married to my first wife. Our first child had been born. The point I'm making is I have complete respect for these people in their 20s that have got their shit figured out.
Because you didn't.
You can relate to that, right?
Yeah, but certainly I've led the more how should I say, scenic route at times.
It's taken me till I was over 40 to really get real, and now I'm 52 to really understand it deeply about what this is about, and I still don't have the answers because we never do, right? So 06, 07, 08, the all-time high, preceding the credit crunch.
Yep.
So when I say the all-time high, were you in finance then?
I was an estate agent.
Right. So you'd have seen what was going on.
You could
borrow.
I could smell it coming about a year in advance, 12 months prior to actually what happened. I was working actually in Canary Wharf, right on Bank Street, right next to the Lehman Brothers building as it went down. So I'd come up the escalators and everybody was out there with. So but I could sense it happening 12 months prior. And I didn't know what was going on though, but this is weird. Why is it all slowing down? What's going on? And then one day, literally nobody would answer the phone. It was that dramatic.
So that period, that 06, 07, 08, was running the commercial agency at Copping Joyce because they wanted a hustler. They didn't want a Rick surveyor, basically. They didn't want that ilk because that's what the market needed. Cleaned up, Shoreditch, City Fringe, City, company expense account, Silver, American Express, whatever it was, company mobile, ridiculous unsustainable salaries. Okay? You could borrow money to do any deal you wanted, bridging anything. As you know. Went into work in September 2008. Can't remember the weekend. It was a Monday. It was when Bear Stearns had gone and the Northern Rock run was happening, right?
Yeah.
And I had a 2-year-old. How old Samuel? Samuel's 21. Yeah, so Samuel was...
Nice name for a kid, Sam.
Sam, great name. The King.
Exactly. Yeah.
Samuel was 4. Went in to work. I'm making you redundant. And it's like, I know how I'd respond to it now, but I was completely stumped. They gave me a few months payoff, went home and didn't have a clue what I was going to do, but it was probably going to be property. And I thought to myself, the best time to set a business up is when it's tough. It's like now. This is the time, is now. It's the hardest market I've ever known. And I challenge anyone that's saying otherwise, right?
Even harder than 2008?
Much harder, because then we knew what was going on. It reached rock bottom. And it would come back. And there was money printing and the quantitative easing and the zero. Money was free. For 15 years. There's that one if we've got time, right?
Absolutely. No, I agree. I bought into the whole thing that it's going to get worse before it gets better. Nobody knows when it's going to get better. This is the worst depression since 1929. I remember these distinctly because it's imprinted in my brain that I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure. Because they said that the days of boom and bust were over. And obviously that wasn't the case. And I just thought after 1929 depression, things got pretty bad and it got into a world war. So I was like, oh, here we go. I've basically timed it really badly. So it's interesting that you thought back then that it was going to bounce back.
Yeah, I think in probably 2009, I did nothing for 6 months to a year.
Yeah, I pretty much
absolutely nothing. Second kid had been born, Nellie. She's 18 in January. And we were buying a house in Essex, all fueled by the boom. Never happened. Life took a different path. I phoned up a couple of mates that I know had a few quid and started buying studios and one-bedroom flats in Haringey.
Whereabouts in Haringey?
We're talking Manor House, Green Lanes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Wood Green.
Yeah, great spot.
Finsbury Park. I'm an Arsenal fan. So,
all are in the Highbury way.
So I knew it. I knew that whole neck of the woods quite well.
Yeah.
And I managed to get by. Wasn't making much money. I was paying investors back and just making enough to live. And then I had some really big decisions to make because at this point, I'm in my 30s and I still haven't really got anything. Define having something. Very difficult. What I understand today that it's an inside job. It's not an outside job. It's kind of how you are as a person. And if you can do well and have both, I believe that's what it's about. And be nice in business because it's fine to be okay and to be pleasant to people, right? And
absolutely.
That's really important. It's that karma stuff,
100%.
Because people don't care what money you've made when you're 6 foot under.
Yeah, it's true.
They just talk about who you were as a person.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I wasn't going anywhere. I'd separated and was getting divorced. So it was all kicking off.
Oh, shit.
And an old schoolmate that I hadn't seen for 25 years said, have you heard about this thing called PD, prior approval, permitted development? Have you heard about it?
This must be around 2013.
Yeah, but this was 2012.
Okay, so it's coming.
6 months before, this is all this thing about your network. Play at the highest level you can with your advisors. You always pay the top lawyers, the top accountants, the top planning consultants, the top people. They're the ones that are writing the script that the government are going to implement. That's how I see it now. And this is when I learnt it. He said, I've set a private equity fund up in Edinburgh. I said, I'm getting divorced and I'm going to take my kids with me. I'm going to take them off their mum and I need to sort my life out, mate. He said, come up to Edinburgh. This is who's behind it. I'd only shared a room with him at boarding school for a year and he was selling stuff at school. He was an entrepreneur. He's a hustler. He's one of those, right?
Yeah.
Made a lot of money, very young. And I said, okay, I need somewhere to live. He goes, I'll sort it out. I've got a house in a village. Go there with the kids. The office is in Charlotte Square, Edinburgh. It's where all the private equity stuff is in Edinburgh, right? But that's like a bit of a hotbed for it, yeah?
Yeah.
And we started picking off redundant office buildings that were vacant and unlettable again as a result of the crash. So this is 5 years later now.
Yeah, but still a lot of that stuff was
that 1970s box with asbestos in the roof, asbestos everywhere with huge car parks in reasonable GDV locations with values you can make money in residentially. Genius stuff, this PD, right? Very early on. I don't know how much PD stuff is left that you can make money on. I see it occasionally, get offered it occasionally, but I'm not sure where there's much left.
No, there isn't. I mean, there's still some HMO stuff, but there's a lot of Article 4 done on that as well. Yeah, I mean, we do work with people. There's Class MA things kind of helped a little bit, so they've kind of pushed it on. But compared to probably when you were doing it, when these C1 to C3 to B1 to C3, that was the big one.
So picked off a handful of those pretty easily by buying off Mapley Estates, who controlled the HMRC and Santander office building portfolios, and hired a boat at Mippim. They funded to basically launch ourselves to the world.
To say that we're out here to acquire assets.
We're out here to basically buy redundant office buildings. Right. I didn't know at the time that boat the fund chartered was Putin's first boat.
No shit.
So we had a chef, and it was like it slept 8 or 10, and we had 3 days at Mippim. We had the Mayor for London's deputy on the boat and all these top architects and fund managers and stuff. And we rinsed a handful of buildings really quickly over a very short period of time that were de-risked to housing associations or RPs, registered providers, when they were doing deals. Which that's the other problem in the market for developers now. If we have time, maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we absolutely need to get to that, yeah.
So agree these deals on a subject to planning, subject to getting PD. No one knew what it was.
Yeah.
It's subject to planning. We can't take the risk.
But you knew you were going to get the...
Yeah.
And so...
It's the 56-day thing, isn't it? And then you can refi. And then we'd got the exit lined up, de-risk the registered provider, which is basically funding the development costs.
And it's all in Edinburgh solely? Or
no,
you start doing it nationally now?
This is all South East England. Because Scotland never had PD.
Right. So
I was based in Edinburgh, living in a village, using all my London network, all the South East England agents, everyone I built up over 20 years.
So it's the London home counties.
It was all home counties, Kent, Essex, stuff, where you could buy these 10,000 square foot, 20,000 square foot buildings for nothing, for like 50 quid a foot.
And what would you repurpose them as? All residential? You do the construction, or would you flip it with planning? Or
so it was basically the affordable housing social rent exit play.
This is the RPs, the registered providers.
Registered providers, for people that might not know, are kind of like housing associations. Yeah. And back then, you could take any deal to them and you'd get an offer.
Yeah.
On it, which you can't, call it the Section 106 stuff now, right? And the game's changed in that as well now. It's hell.
Yeah.
So I would secure the exit by phoning up the business development team at the HA and say, we've got this office building, and I had to sell them the dream of office conversions because they're all new build housing associations. They don't do conversions. They never did until I believe we came on the scene.
Right.
Why don't you take an office building and we'll turn it into flats? You'll be on site quicker. There'll be people living in it quicker. You'll reduce your waiting list quicker. That was the sell. It was a fact. They forward fund the deal.
Yeah.
As some people may know, that's the model. So the risk you're taking as a developer is buying the building, and if you're lucky, you can get them to fund the planning as well. That's how that model worked. It still works. So not fortunes in it, but good cash flow, and didn't have a clue about asbestos. Asbestos is the Wild West. Asbestos and demolition is run by people that operate in the Wild West. That's the kind of people and companies they are. So when you go into these buildings, there's anything pre maybe 91 or 92, I can't remember the date, has got asbestos in it.
Yeah.
So you'd go and get your 3 quotes, you'd tender the asbestos, 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand. A bit like bill costs, right?
Yeah,
Nothing's really changed, yeah? Let's go cheap. Pay cheap, buy twice.
Cost you more.
Got caught on some of these buildings with asbestos and hadn't done it properly. Really steep learning curves, all this stuff, right? Because I'd never done development, really. Like, let's be clear, my opinion on property development, this is just my opinion, it's not putting a new kitchen in a house.
This episode is sponsored by Merry Oaks Property Finance Brokerage. Merry Oaks is a finance brokerage for investors, developers, landlords, SMEs across the country, helping you with all of your finance needs. So whether it's bridging, development, commercial, buy-to-lets, HMOs, service accommodation, industrial, hotels, the whole 9 yards, whether it's for your portfolio, whether it's for your business, we can support you. Please contact us. We've got the link in the show notes and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, back to the episode.
Okay, that...
For sure, of course.
Okay. Or like laying a laminate IKEA flooring. I don't believe that's development. If that's your model and you're investing and you're getting your margin each month on your buy-to-let interest only, great. For me, development is, it's the planning gain, it's the building, it's homes.
Yeah.
So I stayed there 2 years. Single dad. Au pairs to look after the kids. Very challenging for the kids. They were living in a village in Scotland, having come from central London where there's 40 kids in the local village school, basically. And something dropped, like the penny dropped. This is all about planning gain. I sussed it out.
Planning gain or planning uplift? Because they say planning gain. Planning gain is the money that you pay the council for a little park around the corner.
Yeah, you're talking about your like Section 106 contributions.
I hear all these planning purists, let's call them, that are like, anyone that calls it a planning gain shouldn't be calling it a planning gain because it's actually a planning uplift, because planning gains mean you're giving money away to like a Section 106 or some sort. So yeah, just to clarify those two terms.
Yeah, so let's clarify. So I call it gain because a gain is, in my opinion, making money or growing muscle.
But in the technical term of planning, what does planning gain actually mean?
Technical, it's basically your off-site affordable contributions to the upkeep of the cemetery, the new library, and God knows what. Technically, that's what it'd be called in those agreements.
Yeah,
I agree with you. So went to New York for my 40th and I'd met someone else who I'm now married to. And I said to her that I'm going to leave where I am. I was on good money. I was on a percentage of the deal. The standard of living up there is really good. The cost of real estate's cheaper. It's a decent lifestyle, right?
Edinburgh's a beautiful city as well.
Beautiful. And I was living on the outskirts. But you know what? There's only so long I can handle looking at water buffalo and sheep every morning.
I know it's grey and windy as well up there.
Well, it's green, which means it rains all the time. It's like the Lake District. It's
green.
Green.
In Durham, it's very green, but very wet and windy. Green.
And that's when this whole thing really began properly, 10 years ago, I would say, after mucking about, not really knowing how to do this stuff, how to make money, how do you invest money, divorce, nightclub, estate agency, permitted development, private equity, a lot of stuff, never stuck in it. Stayed in property, I've stuck in that.
Yeah,
right?
there is a thread that stitches it all together. The
thread is the sector.
Yeah.
That's the thread, but not the specific strategy.
So fast forward to where we are today, and these 150 homes and the consents that you've had and the permitted development and the planning. So where have you been focusing, let's say, from 2015 onwards? Over the last 10 years, what have you been doing mostly? Okay,
so let's break that down into two parts. We'll call it pre-COVID and post-COVID, because I believe that this is the thing with costs, right? Okay, from 2014 to 2020, you could make money where the GDV was £350 a foot, resi. You could.
Yeah.
Ashford, Kent.
Yeah, nice place.
Some parts of Kent, some parts of Essex. That was the target. Brownfield. Bit of greenfield. Bought a 27-acre site, Uncon, in Lancashire. Had I ever bought a 27-acre greenfield, Uncon, unallocated site in my life? No. Funded with other people's money, and then set about a 8-year project. Which
last summer was a land promotion, isn't it? Just for the planning, or that's from like getting the planning and building out.
So because it was Uncon, so unconditional. Let's be clear. However sophisticated your audience is, we were on the hook on day one.
Incredibly sophisticated.
We owned it. We owned it on day one. 27 acres of a lovely field in an expensive town in Lancashire with good values. So
in
much
Lancashire?
Lancashire, because I was living in Manchester at this point. Right. I'd moved and had fallen in love with the woman I'm now married to.
Happy days.
And then set about 8 years of my life on that specific deal. Getting planning, going to appeal, building a scheme of new build bungalows, negotiating with Highways England to sell the rest of the acreage because they were putting a dual carriageway through it, which we knew before we bought it. That was one of the angles. So learned what a CPO is, compulsory purchase order. Didn't have a clue. Negotiate the whole thing myself. I thought I could do it myself. I'm not going to appoint a whole
team. Did you do a good job in hindsight, or could you have done it better if you had somebody on your side?
It's basically all about getting the hope value. It's hope. It's land plus hope.
And the CPO will allow you to realise that. 'Cause otherwise, for some people, the hope value is hard for them to get their head around, especially for lenders and funders, etc.
Yeah, and also the government.
But the government is the CPO, right?
Yeah, so you're basically taking on the government. At that point,
would they give you it? Because they value the highway much more than certainly the...
Fine, so managed to get hope value, but then before we accepted that, there was a decision to make. Do you take them to the upper court, which is the Lands Tribunal, and risk $250,000 on litigation, telling them your land's worth 10 mil, or do you walk away with your hope?
What was it?
Walked away with the hope. Yeah. My investors and shareholders and co-directors had had enough.
And so you've talked about a couple of times of working with investors, and you've been quite open about working with investors from Russian money and etc. So these investors that you've got now for doing these types of deals, where are they coming from? Who are they? How do you get them comfortable?
So the longer you're in the game, you build a reputation for yourself, and that reputation in the investment world is paying people back.
Yeah.
On time, and being a person of your word. Going back to morals again, and understanding how business should operate. So still use investors to fund a large proportion of the planning costs on these deals, because they're now 150k a pop, the stuff that we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's just 10 houses on a field in an expensive village that might go to appeal. Let's kind of educate people on these planning costs.
There's no kind of underlying security either if you're doing an option or subject planning, so that is literally burnt cash if you don't get a result.
Yeah, correct. So basically they are buying into my knowledge that I know how to get planning, exit, trade or build. That's what they're buying into.
And 150 grand, just for those that don't know that are keen to do this. Funnily, one of my team members at Merry Oaks actually sent me something to do with planning and somebody selling planning. I can't remember the name. I'll check it and I'll tell you after. But in terms of like training for planning, I said, "What do you think? Should I?" Because she wants to invest. And I'm like, "Oh, it's not. You know, you could burn a lot of cash quite quickly doing planning if you don't know what you're doing. That £150,000 is a lot of money to a lot of people. What are we spending that on? Because the cost of the application is only a few £1,000s at most, isn't it?"
So I think before I answer the question on what that goes on, let's talk about the margin you need to be looking for on these deals, because that shapes the spend.
Right.
Because I have people that mates of mine that are not in property say to me, I've seen your stuff on Instagram, why are you even doing this? Is it worth it? And I will explain to them that it's all about the margin. You make your money when you buy and not when you sell.
That's always like the underlying rule of real estate, isn't it? That's one of the first things I was told 25 years ago.
But in planning uplift, you see, you've now single-handedly got me to change to uplift.
Happy days.
Okay? Always learning, right?
We're a very sophisticated audience here. You see?
I can see them all.
Looking at you, judging.
Yeah. 35% margin. I believe that's what you have to go for when you're buying something that hasn't got planning.
Yeah.
So what does the 150 go on? That's the budget we allocate.
Just on the margin, 35%. So let's talk about £1 million site value that you're securing on an option subject to planning, something like that. So you would need it to be worth 1.35.
1.5 because it basically we're talking net.
Right. So 1.5, so 30% more exactly. So 500,000 on top. Okay.
Because otherwise it's not worth it. Because So now let's go into the social media investment raising. Can we kind of touch on that? Or do you want me to? Okay,
we'll go there. The planning costs, and then you can talk about that.
So there's the planning application fees to the local authority based on the hectares or the number of units, and that's gone up by 40% in a year.
Right.
Then there's your trees, your flood risk, your design and access statement, your bats, your ecology, your pig-footed geese that you might find in the bushes, because we target fields. Greenfield, not green belt, open countryside or greenfield. Doing a bit of brownfield at the moment, haven't done it for a while because everyone's at brownfield. You know, everyone wants brownfield, so we're doing stuff that not everyone wants.
Greenfield
right?
is effectively something that is within the boundary where you're allowed to build, but it hasn't never been built on before.
Yeah, or it could be a field adjacent to the development boundary that hasn't been built on, or it could be someone's back garden that lives in a very expensive house that can't afford to put the heating on, that have got a swimming pool they've never used for 20 years.
Tennis court.
They've got a tennis court that's full of leaves, but they've got 2 acres behind them.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff as well, right? It's very niche. It's very laser focused, right? And I'll factor in the appeal costs within the 150,000 as well. Because when you're speaking to an investor, you have to be honest with them.
Yeah, of course. Always.
Because they're saying, how long am I tying up this cash for? Because, and you know, you have to be transparent with them. Otherwise, they will never come back to me.
I always find that investors are looking for how much money do I need to put in? How long do I need to tie it up for? What's my return? And what's my security? What's the security? What's the end of the security?
So
for something like this, because it's obvious when you're buying first charge, second charge development.
Okay, so you've said quite rightly there's no security when you're buying subject to planning on a conditional contract or option. So it's going to be a facility loan agreement, potentially a personal guarantee if you haven't worked with them before, and basically trust.
Yeah, that's the nature of it. But then the returns, I can measure it to the risk that you're taking.
And those returns that people want is more expensive than a bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's a bridge? 1.05 a month, right? 2 in, 1 out, plus fees, call it. I'm paying more than that.
Yeah, much more than that.
Yeah.
So, which is fair, which is totally fair, I think. So you've got ecology reports, transport. So this is just a nature of all these reports, basically, to get your planning application to a point where you've justified to everybody why it's worthwhile doing, and nobody is going to be majorly put out, including the badgers and the bats.
Yeah, correct. But also, I just want to caveat that. So the reason it's that expensive is because we're only using the top people in the country.
Right.
Which goes back to what I said earlier regarding don't be scared to pick the phone up to the corporate nationwide blue chip people. In other words, the consultants at the top of their game, because they're the people that when you send a report in and the planning officer opens it up and it's got the logo of Pegasus Planning Group or Iceni or Savills or SLR on your flood risk and God knows who else, they go, all right, he's serious. And when you go to fund, because let's say you're going to develop and your architect is blue chip, development funders, because I'm in the middle of a raise at the moment, they now more and more want to see who's the team behind this.
Yeah, I get it.
Spend the money. Go the extra 15, 20% on the planning costs and the reports, because potentially it's worth its weight in gold. It's how you get to that figure.
Yeah, it makes sense. And then so all these expensive planning costs, the returns are there. It's a little bit more risque than some of the other planning property strategies, as people might say. You wanted to touch upon raising finance from social media, you said. Tell us, what's your take on it? Is it good? Is it bad? Should we do it? Shouldn't we do it? If we should do it, how should we do it?
So this is only my opinion, right? And I've never raised a penny off social media. I've done deals off social media. I've trained people that have reached out. I've done development consultancy for people that have DM'd me and said, can you help me with this project? Because I just need your help, right? So you see these things pop up, right? I've got deals, I can give you 8 to 12%. Now, I'm not in the HMO game. I never have been. And I don't think I ever will be. Got nothing against it. I know what's going on with these commercial valuations and you're valuing something off an income, and that's a dangerous game to play rather than bricks and mortar. That's as much as I know. So something in reality that's worth $500,000 is getting valued at 800. That's just what I pick up off Instagram, right? Then in terms of the buy-to-let stuff, is it really worth putting your 25% deposit down to make 250 quid a month if the tenant stays for 12 months? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Not for me personally. So then you see this stuff. No experience at it. We'll give you 8 to 12% on your money. What does that really mean? And how much are you making yourself? Like, honestly, I know what I'm paying to raise equity at the Champions League of the game, because that's what we're in. Not being arrogant about it. We are playing at the top table and the risks are huge and the returns are huge, right? That's the game. And you've got to be able to sleep at night and wear that pressure, right? If you're taking 50 grand off someone, yeah, I think you can pay them 10%. Or 11% or 12%. I actually think you can. And ours is rolled up in the private investment game because we've got nothing coming in. They're fields. What have you got? A license to a farmer for horses for $1,000 a year. An agricultural tenancy or whatever they're called, right?
Can't service that.
Correct. Isn't serviceable and there's no covenant either. So I get it, and I think social media is incredible. I think it's unbelievable.
Really?
I really do.
You are active on the Instagram. Are
Yeah.
you? Is it LinkedIn? Which are your favourite platforms?
I've done really well out of Instagram in terms of the business. LinkedIn, I still think is a bit more professional. Just
Right, Facebook and Facebook groups.
Try to grow the Facebook stuff. I'm like in some Facebook groups. Really.
TikTok.
Pardon?
TikTok.
Yeah, I'm on it, but I don't rate it because like the TikTok audience wouldn't be able to afford to have me as their consultant or their trainer or whatever, right?
Because so is it more for? So you use it for mainly raising, meeting investors and raising finance, and for your mentorship program.
Yeah. So the social media, the Instagram stuff is the training, the mentoring, and development consultancy. So I'll have people reach out in completely different careers, who are not even in property, that have sold a business, sold shares in a business, probably in their 40s, late 30s, got a few quid behind them, probably got the resources to get into what I do on day one, money behind them and go, I've seen you, you know what you're talking about, let's jump on a call. I'm buying this site, I need you, I need your help. I don't know how to raise the money, I don't know how to discharge the planning conditions. Who are we going to get as the principal contractor? Have I even bought it well enough?
Do you prefer the planning side of things, or do you prefer the construction side of things in property development? Because I always see it's like almost two separate things.
So what do you think, having met me for a very short period of time? Yeah, that's where the money is. Yeah. That's where the buzz is. I get a buzz out of putting the whole application together with the team and submitting it, and then basically getting the decision. By the time you got the decision, basically you've moved on anyway, because you're doing other planning applications. Now that build costs are calm, and this is the new normal, 250 quid a foot down there, 175 up north, plus costs. Let's not forget that. So you're adding another 15% on that. It's settled. This is the new normal, everyone. This is what it's now costing to build, and will always be like this. I think it's quite a good time to build now. For a SME that can sweat it, even buy with planning. So that's how you get on site quicker. Buy it with a full consent. You're on site in 3 months after you've discharged the conditions. Yeah,
well, sooner if they've already done it in advance. So you can break ground pretty immediately, as long as all the boxes are ticked. This is the funny thing, though. For construction, which is, they say, more predictable. You can get a JCT fixed price contract with a contractor. GDVs, they tend to not fluctuate that much over a period of time. Normally these developments, depending on how big they are, can be anything between 12 to 24 months. There's a lot more people that are willing to take construction risk, because they say that planning can be quite subjective in terms of the interpretation of the application that you're submitting and whether it's going to get approved or not. They play around with its planning law, they play around with the wording, and therefore the risk, even if you tick all the boxes, it can be contentious and all this sort of stuff. So that level of subjectivity, how do you get comfortable with it? And have you had any instances where you've had to go up against committee members and stuff where it's become quite difficult? And have you ever failed at planning?
So failed on appeal last year. First one, devastating. I was away. No, I just got back, but I kind of knew there was a problem. So failed on the outline for 12 houses, big plots, 2.5 acre site, expensive village, Essex. Appealed it, got the top people in the country, barristers, rolled all the heavyweights out. Surely this has got to get past the planning inspector. It didn't. So that subjective stuff, which is what you see a lot of, is harm to landscape character.
Harm
to landscape, that old chestnut. So those houses are going to harm the landscape over there. It's insane. It's like the heritage stuff with a listed building. It's subjective, because these listed buildings have got a character and a personality. This is where we're at. This is what I think.
I might think it actually enhances it, but somebody else thinks it harms it.
Failed on appeal, about to go back in. So there were 5 reasons for refusal, and we ticked 4 of them off and failed on one, which was the urban nature and landscape character stuff. So
how do you deal with that? I can't deal with that. That's why I don't do it. I'm like, I just can't. If I think it's beautiful, it should be beautiful.
So those sorts of losses, people don't talk about losses on Instagram. Do you ever get someone putting a reel on saying that they've lost $250,000 on a deal? No.
Tell them.
You know what I mean? Right? So I've done this, I've done that, I'm making money. It's a lot of it's the truth.
See a lot of Lamborghinis.
What I'm interested in at the moment, I've been watching from a distance all these trainers calling all these trainers out. You've been following it?
I've seen that as well. That's quite a bad new trend.
God, really heavy duty, this stuff.
It's better than the TikTok dancers. It's more entertaining than that, but yeah.
I felt myself watching it all this week and looking at all, and they're all calling each other out. And then if you try and litigate, they crush you and all.
Well, you're a mentor, so they'll be coming for you soon.
I know.
I'm
really worried about it.
Making sure your house is in order.
So, funding, planning. The planning, I believe, is where the money is. I believe there's money in the build if you've got your own team and you know how to do it. I still think there's money in it for someone that wants to build 25 houses a year. I still believe there's money in the game. Probably for that, you've got to buy with planning initially to get going, to get a couple on the go, raise your dev funding. Hardest I've ever known to raise money. I'm talking institutional or challenger bank money. Never known it this hard, particularly on new build dev.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of people are hurting, especially if you want stretch senior. But if you're coming out of the last couple of years, there's a lot of developers that I was at the Property Investor Awards a few weeks back, and just everybody around the room, especially the more active developers, really feeling quite hurt by the market and what it's done to them, eroding any margins and profits that they've built in from dev exits and just sitting on elongated sales periods. So it's been hard. So I think I've seen a little bit of a resurgence in development applications. People are starting to get, it's a good time to start building, because the horizon 18 months from now, 24 months from now should be looking better. Interest rates will hopefully be a bit lower. Everybody's talking about how much they don't like the government, but at least they're getting some sort of stability and certainty as that we know what they're going to be doing and how disposable income is going to be impacted for the most part. So I'm an ultimate optimist. I always try and see the positive, and I think we do have an affordable housing crisis, and I think that things like land planning development are still very, very important parts of the private sector, and there's money to be made. So I'm on the same page as you with that.
Okay.
So in terms of the mix between residential, because you've talked a lot about and commercial development and planning, do you steer away from any kind of commercial, or is it just that you haven't done much, or have you done more and we haven't talked about it?
Haven't done any commercial development.
Why is that?
Not something I have the skill set in.
Right.
You know, So I sort of believe that people need to hone their craft. I don't think that's changed, right?
After jumping around doing so many different things. I mean, I've done the same. I started out as an estate agent and done a variety.
And it was time to stay in one thing now and to become an expert in that field and be able to stand up in a room of 2 or 3 sophisticated ultra high net worths where you're trying to raise 7 figures, which you don't do on Instagram. Maybe you do, but I don't, and present to them, because you have 15 minutes with these people at 7:30 in the morning. And it's being able to hold your own. And that's so commercial, no, it's resi. No point ruling anything out. Everything's up for grabs. It's all doable. But getting to the age now, 52, where it's, let's just focus on the resi stuff and become really, really good at it.
What's one misconception about planning and planning uplift you wish more people would challenge?
Everyone thinks it's difficult to get planning. When I say everyone, that's people that are new.
I think I've lost 20 grand on a property deal, which had planning, and I needed the planning to be able to add the value. And it was it's who do you trust as well. So I had a planning consultant, I had an architect, and it needed a 1-to-1 car ratio. And having spoken to the planning consultant, having had a pre-app, they said, well, if you do all these other things and you put a bollard so people can't park on the pavement, and then you put a bike shed and it's in the town centre, so okay, we might be able to get around it. So we spent literally 2 years, 2 applications, and right at the end, they said, oh, but it needs to be a 1-in-1 car ratio, so we're going to reject it. I could have gone to appeal, but they said, oh, this other one similarly down the road lost at appeal, so there's a fat chance that you're probably not going to get it. And I just thought, oh, this is I'm not doing this again. So I think it is hard.
So
what would you say to somebody like me?
So I'm not going to comment on the application because I don't know what's gone on, like the specifics of policies and stuff, right? And I don't know who you had.
Definitely didn't have the A team. Didn't have the.
Okay, so maybe we've answered this just now. This is this thing again. So it might have cost you 25 with the A team. Who are you going to call? It's all that, right?
Yeah.
you know, and yeah.
Fair enough. No, it's a good point.
And things are changing. Can we just explore what I believe's happened under Labour?
Yes.
With planning, which ties in with that question. So I watched the budget. I watched Rachel Reeves make these comments, spades in the ground, cranes in the sky. She used those words. I watched it forensically. Because to do what we do, you've got to be a scientist. Even though I'm not professionally qualified, you've got to have something about you that is prepared to take pain and read documents. And not rely on, the planning consultant has said it's okay to submit. No, I want to read it, mate.
Yeah. It's not the biggest risk, they say, is not knowing what you're doing. So you can rely on these people, but to a certain extent, you need to know this stuff yourself, right?
Well, you know, I believe if you're putting money into something, you have to take responsibility.
Yeah.
So how's it changed? Right. Pre-apps are going through really quickly. So a pre-app for people, it's not a planning application, it's your pre-planning application to get a steer or the ambition of the local authority that the scheme may work when you submit a planning application. They're flying through, we're getting them in a month. Getting in front of planning offices in 4 to 6 weeks.
And this is all because of the planning reform.
And this is because I think they've been told, get the pre-apps done and get these applications in.
Yeah.
Appeals, because the system is full of planning appeals, because a lot of stuff was failed for not real reasons, political reasons, all nonsense. Appeals they're like going through that backlog really quickly.
Right.
Hoovering them up. There's thousands of them. And they've like brought the wait times down.
This is all really positive. People do a lot of Labour bashing, and this is, from what you're telling me, really positive.
But let's see whether we're going to get planning permissions through, right? Because that's the proof of it. But from so far, I've sat in meetings with planning officers in the last 2 months with specific site layouts. I've never done this before. We just take a drawing with rough plots, and this is the road going in, yeah? I'm sitting in meetings with an actual layout, which I've never done before. I'm driving it now. I'm driving the narrative. This is what we'd like to do. I think it'd be a really good scheme for the village. What do you think? And they're going, yeah, maybe turn that plot round. What about that view? That's how... No one's coming to save us, Sam.
This episode is sponsored by Merry Oaks Property Finance Brokerage. Merry Oaks is a finance brokerage for investors, developers, landlords, SMEs across the country, helping you with all of your finance needs. So whether it's bridging, development, commercial, buy-to-lets, HMOs, service accommodation, industrial, hotels, the whole 9 yards, whether it's for your portfolio, whether it's for your business, we can support you. Please contact us. We've got the link in the show notes, and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, back to the episode. The outlook looks good. Labour have been quite pro-planning. I mean, arguably, so is the Tories with all the PD stuff that they did. So, do you think that they're going to build 1.5 million homes by the end of the term?
No, I don't think they'll get anywhere near it. I still do think they're focusing on the big sites. I still do think they'd rather give planning for 500 homes than 5 easier. I still think that, but I think they've been told to encourage SMEs. You know, that's what I'm picking up. About a year ago, local authorities were told to calculate their housing supply in a different way. It's called the new method. The old method, they were able to fudge their supply in their favour by saying they have enough.
Yeah.
So we've got a list of every local authority in South East England that are failing and into the next 2 years. That's kind of, because that's the intel you get by using the A-team.
Because this stuff is pretty complicated in terms of solving it. They've had like 13 housing ministers in 13 years or so. If you were given the job, do you think you'd do a better job than what they've done?
I would just take the handbrake off. Now, I understand the greenbelt stuff. There's a lot of greenbelt suitable to be built on. I think they need to resource the planning department. She mentioned it for 5 seconds in the budget. We're going to start a new skills training thing for planning officers. I don't know whether you picked that up. But that's all I listen for in those sorts of things, honestly.
So
I don't care
think
about anything
nobody
else.
talked about that as well, but she mentioned that, yeah?
Mentioned it. But
that's good. That's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, but then it's making it viable as a career.
Because what normally
How
happens
do you
is
make
the people they normally go to the private sector because they're going to get paid more.
How do you make it attractive?
So that's what I'm saying. So do you think you'd like it go? Say, I'm Keir Starmer and I come and say, here's your opportunity, your time to shine, your time to really solve the affordable housing crisis. Do you want to have a crack at it? What would you say?
Yeah, I think it's about making planning and development sexy. And I think that the way that you build it is by appealing to the younger generation, because they are the future. I'm not. The 21 to 30-year-olds, they are the future of the industry. They're the ones that are thinking twice about becoming developers because they're listening to this stuff. And thinking it's really difficult and seeing all the press stuff and it's like anti-capitalism and all this nonsense, right? And they are socialists. Who cares? I actually think what you've just said hit the nail on the head. We now know where we stand for a bit.
Yeah, got a little bit of certainty. At the very least, it's not an ideal, but it's better than, 4 prime ministers in 3 years or something that we've had previously, which is also nuts. You've done a fair amount of deals. Tell us one that you're most proud of.
It was a brownfield site in 2 half an acre parcels, bought off a institutional PLC. Managed unconditional brownfield in Kent within a regeneration zone as identified in the emerging local plan, right? So it was coming, but it wasn't there yet. And I said, I'll give you a 50k non-refundable on exchange, but I want 15 months to complete. Still uncon, so it's not subject to planning, because I knew I could get in and out in 15 months, or so I thought. In planning, I had the pre-app. I knew that the local authority was pro-planning.
What year is this?
Just before COVID. Pro-planning and still are. And the guy was retiring and wanted a legacy. I've done this regeneration zone kind of angle, right? Sat in front of him, he said, I don't want affordable housing, just give us 50 grand towards that, whatever, fine, here's the pre-app. Increase the height of the building on site A, increase site B, you could get to 59 flats across both, have a go. Got to 15 months, had to complete. Didn't have the money, didn't have planning, couldn't fund it. So let's be clear, people, right? And I still use this today. Get the deal and then worry about how you're funding it afterwards. And I know people don't really talk about this. In the real world, you don't have the money available for every deal all of the time. It's a fact. People might give that perception off, but it's false. I still operate like that. Just go and get the deals. Go and get the deals. Worry about the money afterwards. Get them in legals, right? And then just go and pick the phone up, yeah?
That's I teach it the other way. I say line up the cash and don't have that anxiety of like, where am I going to get the money? Of course, you've got some experience behind you, so and you probably have a few telephone numbers of who you're going to call.
Yeah, but I think,
and a handy Instagram following.
But I think the whole estate agency thing really helped that.
Yeah,
it's the whole winging it thing.
Yeah.
So I picked the phone up to the agent. Picked the phone up to the agent representing the institutional PLC. There was no clause in my contract giving me the right to extend. It's called an extendable clause. Get it in your conditional contracts, people, property people. I said, I basically need another 3 months. The agents are not interested in why. They want their fee, right? We used to be one, yeah. They're not interested in, I need another 3 months because I'm waiting on a final decision from the planning committee or whatever. They don't care about that. I'll give them another 25 grand to buy 3 months.
Yeah, literally.
Literally, that's what I was doing. I think it might have been more. I can't remember. Got the planning. Traded both sites on simultaneously on the same day to 2 different buyers with about 8 sets of lawyers, which was quite an incredible process.
I can imagine.
Us, the lender, so the bridger, the mez, me, the PLC owner, the round robin, whoever it was quite interesting, right? quite terrifying at the time. And that did really well, even after paying the corporation tax and seeing what was left afterwards.
Do you mind me asking what the site price was and what the purchase price was?
So, well, I suppose that I haven't revealed the address or the institutional owner, so I'm probably all right, and the tax has been paid, right?
Should hope so.
So, the purchase price across both sites was 1.25, so one was slightly bigger than the other in acres.
That's what you were buying them for.
That was our buy price on the contract, 1.25 mil, and it made net around 495 grand for basically 18 months work. Would I do those sorts of deals again? All day long. And it was brownfield as well, so it was easier.
In around, or everything you do is like London home counties, or home counties.
So, live up north.
Yeah.
I'd like to do deals up north, but the values are lower, as you know.
Yeah,
so unless you Hale, Alderley Edge, Cheshire East, Cheshire West, a few of those,
or buildings with where the conversion might be a little bit lower, cost will be a little bit lower.
Yeah, or building executive plots for footballers, huge money in that. But that's all established. That's all spoken for. Yeah. Everything Southeast England, all the agents, all the direct vendor stuff, all the consultants, all my investors, all the shareholders is London. And people not London is still where the money is.
Yeah, the GDP per square foot is where the deal stacks. So unfortunately, there's some areas of England just like, I think that's what's a misconception for some people, is that they think that you can build anywhere and everywhere, but there's actually some places that it's just not viable, feasible to actually build. It costs you more to build it than it would be to even pay for the land. Sometimes you get the land for free, you wouldn't be able to build it. So that is interesting. Well, we've gone quite in all sorts of different directions here. And there's so much more that we could deep dive into. So we'll probably have to do this again sometime. But I've got a few quick fire questions for you. What was the first thing you thought this morning?
The first thing I thought is that I need to meditate.
You've been doing that for a while?
Every day for 6 years. I used to do it quite a lot when I was younger.
Is it like short 5-10 minute, or do you spend like a half an hour or something?
Weekends I have more time and I'm less anxious. All that, right? But every day without fail, no matter where I am in the world, what hotel, what meeting I've got at 8 a.m, 5, 10, 15 minutes. At the moment, it's breath work.
That's brilliant. Yeah, no, I love that stuff. I'm a big advocate for it. It saved my life at one point. What did you have for breakfast?
I went to Benugo in Waterloo Station, waiting for the train, and did that 10 quid London Station breakfast thing.
Any good?
Smoked salmon and cream cheese bagel with nothing in it and a cappuccino.
Very good. What's your favourite emoji?
The heart.
Oh, bless you. What's one question you'd like to ask me?
Where do you see the Property People podcast platform going?
I would actually like to get MPs and the housing minister on here and, talk it out. Probably if I knew that was coming, I'd go to all of the people in my network, people like yourself, and create a list of questions. And I think hold them to account to a certain extent, but also share some ideas with them, like be a little bit more collaborative. The fact that we've had 13 housing ministers in 13 years or whatever the number is, it's a crazy number, just goes to show that we're hiring a lot of people that don't really know what they're doing. And I think we need to have a little bit more collaboration. I've seen a couple of people from the housing, from the property industry on Instagram stuff going to 10 Downing Street and having kind of behind closed doors discussions. But I think in the advent of social media, and we were talking about authenticity and transparency and long form content, it would be good to actually have them to come down, sit down and really talk these things through, so that actually the wider population can understand that landlords are not the problem. There's all this landlord bashing is a bit nuts, to be honest, and why the private sector needs to exist, and what we can do to get the private sector and the public sector to support things like initiatives like, building more social housing or creating more affordable stock and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, eventually I'd like it to be that kind of support for the community, as well as in general just helping more property people into the industry, whether they're surveyors, whether they're architects, whether they're developers, investors, etc.
Okay. That's something that I may be able to help you with.
Happy days. I'm very grateful. That'd be really, really cool. Good question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
It's taking your time before making decisions. It's that pausing for breath thing that we said earlier that really only comes with age, actually, and experience.
Bit wisdom.
Just take your time. Today you might get offered a deal. You might think it's the greatest deal ever, and you might not have run your numbers properly. And you might buy it having never appraised it properly because you didn't take a breath.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's interesting that we started with that. We come back round to full circle, talk about meditation. What's the worst bit of advice you've ever had?
3.5 years ago, someone said to go and buy Rolls-Royce shares. I don't know whether you're in the stock market or we do any of that
Not
stuff.
much, I'll be honest.
I picked the phone up to someone that I've got really not much knowledge in it. I've got a few bits and pieces, right? And I phoned up someone who said, yeah, Rolls-Royce are finished, even though they make the engines. Their share price is 10 times in the last 3 years.
Painful, isn't it?
It's just life, because it will come back in the next deal, right?
Where are you at with crypto? Do you like crypto?
Had some money in it from 2016 to 2020. Didn't know what I was doing. Paid the mortgage during COVID kind of money. Do you know what I mean? And like fed us during that 2 or 3 year period. Came out of Ethereum, had a bit of Litecoin. I've got a little bit in both of those. I don't understand it, and I don't think anyone does.
Not really, the truth be told. Not for another 100 years anyway. If you had to start again tomorrow, no contacts, no capital, just your experience, what would be your first move?
My first move would be to try and find someone that's older than you, that's got more experience, that you may not have to pay. There are people out there that will still help you out without taking your money. I think it's looking for that person is fundamental as a young person. It gives you direction. Youth need experience next to them.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with that. 100% agree with that. I had a lot from the people that I used to surround myself with as agents who also had developers around them, and that's kind of molded my career, including my parents, actually, to be fair. So that's very good. And this podcast is called Property People. It's all about successful property people, active property people that have had highs and lows, and you're certainly one of those. What characteristic traits do people need to have to be successful in property, in your opinion?
So, not taking no for an answer is one characteristic. Being able to have a very high tolerance for pain. So we're talking emotional pain, not physical pain, and understanding that we have to look after ourselves off the pitch being the day job, the development game. It's like understanding that stuff, that it's not what it's all about. This 16-hour a day, 7-day a week stuff. It's not about that. It's never been about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. The pain thing, there's the anxiety, but that's why do the breath work and stuff, and hopefully it takes that away. But certainly, the persistence and perseverance, you definitely need it. It's a long game. I was also told when I started out, probably the marathon, not a sprint. I say it regularly, and I still believe that. Jerome, thank you so much for joining me. If people wanted to reach out and find you, what's the best way they can reach you?
So, page on Instagram, Property Planning Gain, which is about to get rebranded as my personal name, Jerome Roith, over the next few weeks, but it's still Property Planning Gain. I'm on Facebook, Property Planning Gain. I'm on LinkedIn, Jerome Roith. I've got a sensitive developments page on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn as well. And if they want to book a discovery call to learn more about the training, mentoring and dev consultancy, they can go on to propertyplanninggame.co.uk and book that through a Calendly link.
We'll make sure all the links are in the show notes.
Nice one.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing the journey that took us all around the world as well. And we'll deep dive into some more planning stuff sometime in the future.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Cheers.